prostitution. Full decriminalization of prostitution in no way rectifies the conditions of inequality, abuse, violence, and dehumanization which animate all forms of prostitution. It tragically assents to them. This is undoubtedly an Orwellian moment. Orwellian because the very institution that the world has looked to for leadership and truth on grave human rights concerns, Amnesty International, is now cut up in doublethink, asserting that it has the rights and well-beings of those in prostitution as its primary concern in its draft policy on prostitution, while simultaneously advocating for the decriminalization of pimps and sex buyers. These are two mutually exclusive beliefs. It is impossible to believe in the humanity and dignity of those in prostitution while supporting the rights of others to use and abuse them. While the pop culture might celebrate pimp culture through songs like Big Pimpin' or PIMP or Pimpin' Ain't Easy, those fighting for the equality and abolition of sexual exploitation expect an organization as lauded as Amnesty International to distinguish fantasy from fact. But tragically, Amnesty appears to have bought the myth that it's hard out here for a pimp, and, to quote Big Daddy Kane, that anything goes when it comes to pimps and hoes. However, this shouldn't come as a surprise when one considers the kind of input that Amnesty has welcomed as it has framed its policy. This woman, Alejandra Gil, has served as the Vice President of the Global Network of Sex Work Projects, a group that Amnesty International's Advisory Council references as contributing to the formation of its prostitution policy. This past March, Ms. Gill, also known as the Madam of Sullivan, was convicted in Mexico City of sex trafficking and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Her pimping operation exploited nearly 200 women. So let's be clear, pimps are sex traffickers. Pimps recruit, harbor, transport, provision, and obtain by force, fraud, and coercion persons for exploitation in the sex trade. Let's also be clear, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. You can call a sex trafficker a sex business operator, but they're still a sex trafficker. In its advocacy for limiting the criminal prohibitions on the organizational aspects of the sex trade, Amnesty has evidently adopted pimps as their new primary constituency. Let's review some of the distinguished members of this group. Dennis Hoff, owner of a string of legal brothels in Nevada, who has recently occupied himself with auctioning off America's next top virgin. Jerry Wong, who offers coupon deals for such as 3 girls for the price of 2 or every 4th visit free. Pimpin' Ken, whose pimpology proclamates the 48 laws of the game and declares there are only 2 categories of people, pimps and hoes. You either give orders or you take them. He further explains that he utilizes psychological warfare, or pimpology, to get what he wants, and that this pimpology is more treacherous than physical abuse. Interestingly, the psychological warfare described by Pimpin' Ken and other pimps comports perfectly with what Amnesty should recognize as psychological torture. Amnesty's own 1975 report on torture outlines methods of coercion and control used on political prisoners as what is known as Benderman's chart of coercion. Anybody familiar with prostitution will immediately recognize that the methods outlined in Benderman's chart of coercion, isolation, monopolization of perception, inducibility and exhaustion, threats, occasional indulgences, degradation, etc., are exactly the same types of tactics that are used by pimps to dominate and control those they prostitute. Thus, in Amnesty's support for limiting the criminal prohibitions on the organizational aspects of sex work, it is as if Peter Benison, Amnesty's founder, instead of crying out against the imprisonment, torture, and execution of political prisoners, as in his famous article of May 1961, was actually articulating policy guidance by which the governments of Estado Novo and Salvador might be aided in their efforts to silence their political opposition. Had this been the case, what we know today as Amnesty International would have been aptly named Impunity International. Today, Impunity International is a better suited moniker.
And that's why we're here, because something effective must be done to protect and restore the lives of those destroyed by the commercial sex trade, because people deserve better than prostitution. I've personally seen and met prostituted persons from all over the world, from the red light slum district of Sangagachi, India, to Bangladesh, West Africa, Amsterdam, King's Cross, Tijuana, Mexico, and the streets of Baltimore. I can assure you it was no life of empowerment or freedom or dignity for any of the people I met. Amnesty, it's not too late to admit that as an institution you've made a mistake. It's not too late to stand up for the forgotten prisoners of prostitution.